standing on the Danforth in Toronto, and behind me you can see Danforth Baptist Church, which is a church I came to as a pastor in the early 1980s and left just at the beginning of the 1990s. And what we're looking at is the context in which I wrote a book about 15 years ago called Reaching a New Generation. And to locate you, if you've seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, this is the street on which that movie was made. In fact, when we pan up and down, you can probably notice some of the stores from that movie. But when I came here that many years ago, the Danforth looked, in terms of a street and in its back streets, like the only folk who lived there were immigrant Greeks. And it was a Greek street with lots of great Greek food on it. And there were these three churches. The one you can see behind you, which was the Baptist Church. The one you can see right beside us, which was the United Church. And then over kitty corner, the Anglican Church. And then right beside the United Church was this vacant lot. And this vacant lot, about 2 years into my becoming the pastor of Danforth Baptist, became what's known as the Carrot Common. And it was designated by the Globe and Mail at that time as Canada's first New Age mall. I want to describe a little bit about how this place came into being. When I was here in the early 80s, this didn't exist. It was, as I said earlier, an old parking lot that nobody was using. And across the street, where now you see the Second Cup, there was this natural food store. And I noticed that going in and out of that natural food store, there were more people every day than were going into most of the other stores. And so I needed to find out, what's this all about? And sometimes we think that, trendy things happen and trendy things go. And you talk about this in the church. Here's the latest thing. It'll pass. Don't worry about it. Well, this was one of those movements that hasn't passed. We remember the Earth Days, but also now Al Gore has made a movie and is now a book called An Inconvenient Truth about climate change and the environment. Well, 15, 20 years ago, these people were already talking about that. And what they were talking about was the way in which our use of the earth, our use of agriculture, was profoundly detrimental both to us as human beings and also to the earth itself. And their desire was to produce good food coming from organic sources. But it was more than that. It was also a recognition that they needed to commit themselves to radically different kinds of, if you wish, spiritual values and attitudes. But behind that, there was also a sense that what had got us in North America into the deep problems we were having in terms of the environment, in terms of agriculture, in terms of food supplies, was not just certain ways of farming, but a narrative. To use the postmodern language, for them it was the Christian narrative, because the Christian narrative had a sense of the personal individual soul and of the earth not being of a great deal of value. And so these folk had rejected the Christian narrative, but they were searching for a spirituality. And it was a spirituality of the earth and of relatedness, of organic cooperation and engagement. Well, they grew massively and moved across the road here and built this Carrot Common that we see behind us. And as I say, if you aggregate the people coming out of the three churches on the three other corners, they wouldn't even come to compare to the numbers of people who make the Carrot Common part of their life. And not a lot has changed, I want to suggest to you, that this place still, whether metaphorically, symbolically, or in reality, in fact, remains a profound metaphor for the ways people want to shape their lives. And in fact, those three other buildings are still as irrelevant as they were 20 years ago. For me, the story in all of this goes back to what I wrote at the end of the book, Reaching a New Generation, where what I said is what's needed across our country, whether it's Canada or North America, are not more big churches that vacuum cleaner people out of their communities into sort of nice, safe, fenced-in communities of Christians. What we need are multiple groups of Christians living in neighborhoods and committed to the neighborhoods and the communities where they live, and ask the question, what's God up to here? And without bringing with us a predisposed notion of what the church ought to look like, or how we ought to go about connecting the big story, which is our story, with their stories, it's about sitting and listening and entering around tables and food in the belief that God is here. And if we listen long enough and hard enough in relationship, we're going to discover new ways of being God's people and God's church in local neighborhoods. And if there's anything I would like to do from this, is to ask how we can hear each other's stories, how we're doing that, because we need to record what we're up to and share them with each other, because I keep meeting all kinds of people who are tired of the go to church and do the church thing and be disconnected from what's actually happening in their neighborhoods and their communities. And all kinds of people are asking, how do we enter our local communities without needing to sell them anything, but just live among and be among, listen to stories, and begin to engage them with God's story in a non-coercive way.